Welcome, everybody, to our next episode of Wrestling with Our Faith. How is everyone doing today? I hope you're doing well. We have a very special episode this week. And before we get to that, though, I have a very big announcement that we finally hit our 50 subscriber mark.
Awesome.
And our guest doesn't know about this, I don't think, but we had a contest going on for when we hit 50 subscribers. Everyone who is subscribed to our YouTube channel, liked the video, and commented are in a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. So,
pretty epic.
Yes, on our next episode, when Josh is back with us, we will be drawing for that live on our Twitch stream. I believe that's the 16th of February. So we will guaranteed be doing that. But if anyone still wants to get in on that contest, you have until the 16th to get in on that. So go into our YouTube channel, give us a like, leave us a comment, and you can still get into that drawing. Only a few more days left. So make sure you guys go do that. So I'm technically on vacation right now. And when you're watching this, I will be in Florida, and it's going to be fantastic, except it's supposed to rain. I'm like, of course.
Go figure.
Yeah, the 4 days it's supposed to rain, they're like the days I'm there. But yeah, so because of that, we're doing a special recording, and we have a special guest with us this week, and our guest is named Josh as well.
Yep. You don't even have to learn a new name.
Exactly. I mean, we figured if one Josh is a good host, another Josh can be a good host too. So
we hope so.
So we're rolling with it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Josh?
Sure. Yeah. My name's Josh Woods, and I am a pastor at the Nazarene Church in Port Huron, Michigan, and I've been there for about a year, but I've been pastoring for close to 10 years now. And before I was a senior pastor there, I spent a lot of time. Spent 4 years in Waterford as the pastor in charge of leading music at a different Nazarene church at Williams Lake Church of the Nazarene, and so it's been pretty cool. And so I'm in my early 30s, and just recently got engaged and planning a wedding as well. And
yeah, so exciting.
I was excited to fit this in. So I actually spent most of the drive over talking to my fiance about lots of plans. So that's my life now.
Yes. Weddings are a lot of work. So. And from what I hear, apparently.
I was it'll be fun, I guess.
Yeah.
It will be fun. Just
yes.
In case she's fine, it will be fun.
It absolutely will be fun. The greatest day of your life.
Right. So a second to this, of course.
Well, of course. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this.
That's right.
The tens of listeners we have.
That's all right. Well, yeah, you got 50 subscribers. That's great. 51
that is true.
After today. So that's
yeah.
good. So
no, exactly.
More than 51.
Exactly. So we are going to lean on a little bit of your knowledge base this week. As you mentioned that you were a pastor of leading, worship and for many years. So we're really going to talk a lot about music in a church and all of those different some of those different subtopics that go with that. And so I'm going to start with getting the first topic, the big one, out of the way. The one that there's always a debate on, and everyone has an opinion, and that is a topic of hymns versus contemporary Christian music. And everyone has an opinion on this. So I will throw it to you, Josh. What's your opinion?
Oh man, hymns versus contemporary worship stuff, and what should we sing in services? Right?
Exactly.
Right. What should we sing in services? Nearly everyone I've met has an answer to this question. My answer to this question is a resounding yes. We should sing both. And I firmly believe that we should sing both. My philosophy there has been, part of what I think we have to look at why we sing, and then I think we need to look at why we sing the things that we sing, right? And,
right.
And so, but I guess, the short answer to that question is I think we should sing both. We can kind of get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty there.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think both have a vital part in worship.
Absolutely.
and uh, and I think if you get away from one or the other, and I don't even necessarily think I want to say that is. I think the most important thing is when we're approaching that is it has to be spirit led.
Hmm.
So if it's hymn heavy one week or contemporary heavy one week, as long as it's spirit led, that's the most important part.
Yes, absolutely. I over the past 4 years, I would try to always have one of each.
Hmm.
But there were some Sundays where we really really needed to sing something else, and I think that's one of the things that I think sometimes people don't know about their worship leaders
Hmm.
is that, or when I say worship leaders, what I'm actually meaning here is music leaders. Worship is more than just music. It's
Right.
prayer. It's hearing the word. It's but for those who are leading music at their churches,
Hmm.
most of the time your music leader and your band members, they aren't just picking songs that they
Hmm.
like they're actually spending time in prayer saying, God, what do you want us to sing? What do we need to sing about you? What do we as a congregation need to affirm about who you are?
Right.
With the hope that someone who is attending will need to know that. And so we're checking in with the Holy Spirit the whole time that you're planning,
Hmm.
and so it's far more than just, will people like the things that we're going to sing? It's like, God, what do we need to say about you?
Exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest unknowns for a lot of people in the congregations. They don't know the planning and the prayer
Hmm.
that goes into putting together the entire worship service.
Right.
It's just as much time as a pastor spends on his sermon. Like there's just as much, and maybe even more time going into the worship set.
Right. And the same amount of prayer, and that sort
Right.
of agonizing over. I mean, they used to tease me at my
Hmm.
last job because, you know, e- every week Thursday would come and I'd need to have the bulletin ready on Thursday, and even on Thursday, as noon was rolling around, I'm still at the piano going like, this doesn't feel quite right. Like, what are we missing? What do we need? Trying to
Hmm.
make sure that what we have prepared for Sunday is what God would have us sing, um, and what will help people connect with God in like in a different way. Because when we connect in music, it's different than even just what we hear. Like, we're fully participating.
Right.
It takes more energy to sing than it does to talk.
Hmm.
And there's there's nothing quite like just embodying the message like that with
Hmm.
your whole voice. And you're trying to plan so that people can sing at the top of their lungs.
Hmm.
And then you're praying that they'll sing at the top of their lungs, even if they don't like the song,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And it's interesting when you do have a service that's prayed out
Hmm.
and you're letting the spirit lead it, and you get signs of that. Like I've had an example where I was a week where I was preaching,
Hmm.
and I let the worship leader know, like, well, this is the passage I'm preaching on, and um, so he's getting service together, and I'm like, but I always tell the worship leader, like, just pray through it, and wherever God leads you,
Yeah.
that's the most important. Like, it doesn't have to line up with what I want you to go with what the Spirit is telling you,
Right.
and then have God come to me like on Saturday night and say, I want you to go in this other direction instead.
Yeah.
And then trying to hurry and get that ready. And then you get into service and worship just lines exactly what,
Hmm.
and you can tell like it's just an amazing like confirmation from God. Like just to know like
Absolutely.
one that I was correct in hearing what God was telling me, but to know that he was speaking to the worship leader and planning this out, that he had a plan for the entire thing,
Right.
and it's the whole service is spirit led, and that's why it's so important to make sure that worship is being prayed through and is spirit led, because God has an ultimate plan for it all. It's not like I say, it's not just about singing some songs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not even just about, well, I get to sing my favorite songs.
Hmm.
We used to tease, they used to tease me because like they knew the songs that I didn't like to
Mhm.
sing, and I'm not even going to admit to them necessarily unless we feel like we have to. Um, but there are songs that I just did not like singing,
Mhm.
and you can come up with all of your list of reasons, and before you think of it, it's not just like there are some hymns that I love that we didn't get to sing.
Mhm.
There were some contemporary choruses where I felt like we needed to sing them, but I really didn't want to, and
Right.
vice versa,
Mhm.
right? And um, it's just amazing to me. But if so, like I still had to make the choice as a leader to
Mhm.
sing a song that I might not particularly care for,
Mhm.
because I knew we needed to sing it, because I knew we needed to say that about God.
Right.
Um, so yeah.
Um, so my question is, since you are a worship pastor, is how would you talk to somebody who has strong feelings one way or the other
Mm.
on what you should sing, and explaining to them what what worship truly is, and how you go about that?
Certainly. I one of the things I try to do is I try to, not turn it into a screaming match, right? I think,
Right.
every time somebody comes to me to talk about music,
Mhm.
like they're coming at it from a space where they really are trying to honor God,
Mhm.
right? It may have personal preference involved in that,
Right.
because we all tend to have personal preference involved in the way we worship God.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes understanding that helps us to move beyond our personal preference.
Right.
But I have found, like when I talk about the fact that I believe that we need to sing both hymns and contemporary music, I have often felt for a long time we need to have one foot firmly planted in tradition,
Mhm.
as a foundation from which to spring forward
Right.
into what God is doing now.
Mhm.
And I think if we miss the history of the church that
Right.
is in those songs,
Mhm.
then we miss that we miss the opportunity to really ground ourselves in the faith that's been passed down to us.
Mhm.
But then if we miss what is happening now, then it just becomes stale tradition.
Right.
And it, like, real faith gives life now.
Mhm.
um, and real faith follows Jesus now, not just the way they did before,
Right.
but the way he's moving now.
Mhm.
At least that's how I feel about it.
Right. Um, so how would you tell someone who just says, whether it's somebody who loves hymns and not into contemporary music, or vice versa, when they say, "Well, I'm just not really into those that type of music, and I just can't get into singing hymns, or I just can't get into singing contemporary music." Like, how would you handle that in explaining to somebody, um, how maybe to get into that type of stuff, or how to handle that portion of worship?
I think it's funny because you asked me how I would actually handle it, not what I would like to say sometimes. And let's just be honest, there have been times where I've wanted to I like where I've had to remember that one of the things that I have to do is I have to choose to set myself aside in those conversations.
Mhm.
Uh, Um, and I think that there's a part of the worship experience that is rooted in scripture, and in the scripture that we find in Ephesians 5:21, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ.
Mm.
And I think we do that. We have the opportunity to do that in a worship service.
Mhm.
Like we're, I mean, COVID's been wild. It's been crazy,
Yeah.
but like, one of the best things that I loved about gathered worship was that we were all together in one place doing the same thing,
Mhm.
connected in all of our differences,
Mhm.
um, to like choosing to be together and connected as we worship God.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, and I, what we sing is primarily about worshiping God.
Mhm.
Like what what I truly think every person, regardless of their preference,
Mm-hmm.
I've got to believe that deep in our hearts, what we really want is a worship leader who will pick songs that will honor God
Right.
and who will honor the Spirit, like we've already said.
Mm-hmm.
But inevitably, that's going to land in a song that I don't particularly care for.
Right.
So I would encourage people in those moments, if they don't know the lyrics, or if they don't know the music and they don't know the tune because it's something new,
Mm-hmm.
maybe to just read the words out loud.
Yeah.
Or if they can't get into it yet,
Mm-hmm.
to choose to think, because I've had to do this as well when I'm participating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why do I believe this person chose this song?
Right.
What about this song has spoken so strongly? God, what are you saying to me through this song, whether I like it or I don't?
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to say about you?
Right.
And there's, and it's my hope now. I mean, this will get us into a different discussion, right?
Right.
There are some songs that don't seem to say very much about God.
Right.
And some hymns are like that, and some contemporary things are like
Mhm.
that. And I tend to kind of push those aside
Right.
a little bit. But I mean, really, the goal. Sometimes we just need to sing not for our own sake, but for the sake of the person next to us.
Hmm.
Sometimes the most God-honoring thing I can do in a church service is to sing a song that is true about Him,
Right.
that's true about God,
Mm-hmm.
and true about Jesus.
Right.
That even though I don't like it, someone else needs to hear me affirm that this is true.
Hmm.
And we can do that. We do that vocally. We do that in a different way, in this full-bodied way when we sing.
Right.
I mean, sometimes I've needed that.
Mm-hmm.
I told my congregation this past Sunday that I remember a time while I was at my last place
Mm-hmm.
where I got up and I like, my heart just wasn't there.
Hmm.
And sometimes, I mean, truth, sometimes a pastor gets up to preach and his heart's in a different place, even though he's tried, and it's not.
Right.
Or sometimes your worship leader gets up to sing and they're just not feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
because of whatever happened in life. And I tell you what, that day, it's like everybody sang louder. It was like God did know.
Right.
It was like the Holy Spirit was encouraging everybody to sing out, because like in that moment, I needed to hear the testimony of the gathered saints.
Yeah.
And it picked me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when we sing songs, I'm trying to think, like, I take my grief to Jesus then, nor do I go in vain. For heavenly hope he gives that cheers like sunshine after rain. That's an old hymn called
Mm-hmm.
It's Just Like Jesus.
Right.
And sometimes like I remember driving to Chicago and being in a crazy rainstorm and talking to a friend who literally read me the words to that hymn, to be like, hey, do you remember that this is true? Like, it is. And I needed that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I need to sing about the love that chases me down, that fights till I'm found, that leaves the 99 to find the one.
Mm-hmm.
In those moments when I'm the one, or that pushes me to leave the 99 to find the one, like that love did for me.
Right.
And I don't know. Sorry, I kind of launched into a mini sermonette there.
No,
Sorry, brother.
that's good. I mean, like for me, like I think one thing that I would try to talk to somebody in broaching that topic is asking them what their intentions are going into worship.
Right.
Because I think that's probably the biggest thing. If your intentions aren't right going into worship, it's just not gonna.
Right.
You let all the personal, the I things come out.
Right.
I don't like this. I like that. I don't want to do this. I want to do that. Where if your intention is to throw yourself prostrate in front of the throne of God the rest doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, even if it's a song that you don't know or it's not your favorite song, the Spirit's going to come in and give you that boost. He's going to, maybe he leads you to pray during that song
Yeah.
because maybe there's something going on that needs to be intercessed over, and he knows, the Spirit knows, like, he doesn't know this song, so I'm going to lay this on his heart to pray for this right now, because that's going to advance the service and advance the
Yeah.
kingdom in the midst, because somebody else needs that and this person can do it. And that only happens when your intentions are,
Right.
I'm giving my all to you in worship.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And when, like, the flip side of that, right, is when we walk into worship as the primary critiquer of what's happening,
Mhm.
like a consumer, a person who walks in and who basically decides, well, all of service is about what I like or don't like, and it's all about what I get out of it. And
Mhm.
that, I mean, we're going to get a ton more out of it when we come to the place where, like, worship is about surrendering myself and my life and my time and my opportunity, and then, and so what that happens is exactly what you said. I'm so glad that you brought up, like, praying in the middle of a song.
Mhm.
Like, what do you do in the middle of those awkward uh instrumental moments, right?
Right.
And I wondered that for forever. And there was a lot of my life that I spent, like, looking at my watch during those times going, how long is that guitarist going to solo? That kind of thing.
Right.
Right. And from a leadership side of that, I often say to my instrumentalists, like, do what you do as a way to worship.
Mhm.
But if it becomes a way to show off, then we got to talk about something else.
Right.
Right. But then on the experiential side, so, like, what do I do in one of those moments? Do I check in? Do I think about how much I know? Like, is there something I need to pray about? Is there something, can I pray for the service? Can I pray for
Mhm.
what people are experiencing? Can I pray that God would speak to the person who's going to be preaching?
Mhm.
And it's yeah, when we take that active role in worship,
Mhm.
um, it ends up being far more fulfilling.
Right.
But it also drops us out of this space where we must have all of our own personal preferences met in order to be happy.
Right. Because I think another thing we need to remember is, like, we can always go home and worship to
Mhm.
all the songs that we like.
Mhm.
Like, we have to remember when we're coming into a worship service at church, it's a corporate event,
Right.
which means it's not about me. It's about all of us collectively and how the Spirit wants to move
Right.
for all of us.
Mhm.
And we each have a role to play in that. So we have, and that goes back to submitting to one another. It's,
Right.
I'm submitting the things that I want to help get somebody to experience worship in a way that they need to.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, that's it's I mean, I've had things in the service where, going to the prayer thing again, like,
Mhm.
I felt a very strong spiritual blockage
Mhm.
that somebody was really struggling, and the enemy was really just working on them hard,
Mhm.
and I've had the Spirit say, I need you to pray now.
Mhm.
This is going on. Don't know who it is or what's going on, but
Right.
didn't matter. It's just like, this needs prayer now,
Mhm.
and you need to intercede. And this is one, just lay it out there, and you just trust that the Spirit is going to work in that, and that blockage is going to be lifted.
Right. You mean to tell me that the things that are happening in service are more than just one person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That God might be trying to do something in us together, and that the whole point of a particular service might not be about me. It might be about something someone else needs.
Right.
But then it might be about me as well,
Exactly.
like,
Yeah, there are times when God is going to use it for you
right.
because he needs to, and there's other times that he's going to need to use it for somebody else. And I think when you have that mentality of whatever it takes for the kingdom to advance.
Mhm.
Like, that's the only important thing.
Right.
Like, God will take care of me when he needs to take care of me.
Mhm.
And I'm here to advance the kingdom in whatever way you need me to.
Right. That kind of leans back a little bit, doesn't it, to the discussion you guys had about what if God calls me uh, to lay down my life?
Right.
Yeah, that's that same sort of thing. Well, what if God calls me to lay down my song preference?
Mm-hmm.
That's not. It, some people treat that as though it's as big of a sacrifice as martyrdom, and if
Right.
you need to be a church music martyr,
Right.
I
I mean, what if God calls me to sing every song that I don't like, but
For-
the Spirit moves in such a powerful way
Mhm.
that lives are transformed, people are continually growing daily,
Right.
people are coming to the Lord, consistently, because we're willing to say, we can sing every song that I can't stand,
Right.
but I'm submitting it to you.
Right. And as long as it's about Jesus and it's really like,
Mm-hmm.
as as long as we're worshiping him and we're telling the truth about who he is,
Right.
then I mean that's where we want to be.
Mhm.
Now, like, and I would say this to some folks as well. Like, if your issue with the song is because it's not saying the right thing about Jesus, we can have a completely different conversation.
Exactly. Yes.
I love those conversations. Right? Let's talk about this. Let's look to scripture. Let's,
Mhm.
a song that I loved in college, it got pointed out to me that it's not scriptural.
Hmm.
And I don't, I mean, maybe I will ruin one of those songs. So it's the song "How Deep the Father's Love for Us." I don't
Okay.
know. There's a statement that says, "How great the pain of searing loss, the Father turns his face away, as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory."
Mm-hmm.
So it's a beautiful thing. It's got that kind of hymn-like structure. It's that kind of thing. There's a lot of theology going on there, but that particular, the Father turns his face away, that's actually incorrect. It's not scriptural.
Right.
And so we know that you told me to have my Bible here, and look at that. We're diving straight into it. Psalm 22, right? So Jesus is hanging on the cross, and he says the first words of Psalm 22, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
Right.
And when a Jewish rabbi did that, they were bringing in all of the rest of the psalm. It'd be like me saying, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound." And if you've been around church for a long time, you're immediately that saved a wretch like me.
Right.
Well, that's what's happening here. My God, why have you forsaken me? Well, if you look at the end of Psalm 22, it says, verse 24, for he, God, has not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help. So like Jesus hanging on the cross, bringing Psalm 22 in, is saying, God has not hidden his face from me. So,
right.
So there's lots of other great stuff in that song, but unfortunately, that's a problem. That becomes a problematic phrase, and then we have to decide what to do with it. Maybe we just need to acknowledge the fact that God didn't turn his face away from Jesus, and that's what they're trying to get at, is this idea that Jesus took on our sin, right? But God doesn't turn his face away from us, and even he's still acting toward us in love, even while we were still sinners.
Right.
So, when we, I mean, that may be your favorite song. Maybe not. Maybe you've never heard that song and you're like, whatever. That's, but I feel like that's far more problematic than the complaint that I hear about reckless love, that they don't like the word reckless because God and reckless don't go together. It's not saying that God is a reckless God. It's saying that his love is so powerful and so passionate that it looks reckless to people who aren't who aren't accustomed to seeing it like that.
We will take a break and be right back. Okay, and we're back. Sorry for that. Hope you enjoyed our little commercial that we had. Uh, so, as we were talking about contemporary Christian music and or even hymns or whatever,
Mhm.
that making sure that they are scriptural,
Yeah.
and just like I would say, you need to be checking the preacher to
Mhm.
make sure that what he's saying is scriptural and lines up, and we need to be doing the same types of things with uh, the songs that we're singing, because there's nothing worse than singing bad theology
Right.
when we're in the middle of worship, because I mean people hear that and then apply it to their lives thinking
Yeah.
that that's truth, and
Absolutely.
when it's not, I mean that can be damaging to somebody's life.
Certainly. I mean, and I think that's where I tried to make sure when I was choosing songs that they were songs that were spirit led, but that were also songs that you could like, that you could chew on, that you could think about, that you could, that pointed to who God actually is.
Right.
And I mean, there are, that's a lot of the argument for why we should sing hymns all the time, but there are some contemporaries. I like Build My Life
Hmm.
as one of the like fairly contemporary things. And I'm just like, I heard that song and I was like, where has this song been all my life?
Mm.
It's saying exactly what I need to say right now about God.
Mm.
Show me who you are, fill me with your heart, lead me in your love to those around me. If that was the only thing I prayed for the rest of my life, that would just about do it,
Right.
and um but yeah, I what you said there reminded me of something that like we're not meant to uncritically consume.
Hmm.
Like we're meant to stay engaged
Right.
and for our brains to be engaged.
Hmm.
And I think that's what's interesting when we start to talk about, contemporary Christian music.
Right.
Because there's, not only are we talking about the things that we would sing in church, but
Mhm.
like there are radio stations that are they're completely set on, well, like here's the music you can turn on when you want to turn off your brain. Like you don't have to worry about what your kids hear, or you don't have to worry about,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And it's kind of interesting because contemporary Christian music didn't start like that. It didn't start as
Right.
a escape from culture.
Mhm.
It started as people who felt called to add the something more that is Jesus
Mhm.
to good music so that people might be able to
Right.
discover who God is.
Mhm.
And I find that to be very, very interesting.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. So you had talked about, as we were discussing, coming on and talking about the state of contemporary Christian music in today's world, and where it's at. So I just want you to go into that a little bit.
sure. I think so like I said, it started, and when you kind of think back, you could think back to, I don't know if I mean, you remember like Petra and those,
Of
yeah.
course, I had several Petra
Yeah.
cassette tapes.
Like, I mean, and that's yeah, this is the cassette tapes. That's right. That's right. I lived there as well. And when those guys started, they were like, their goal was, let's play the best music we possibly can
Mhm.
so that somebody will listen to our music and go, wow, these guys can play. And then they'll listen to our lyrics and go, whoa, there's something different about this.
Mhm.
And it's like that was the heart behind that for those guys, or for then you start to get into guys like DC Talk, which, I mean, DC Talk and Toby Mac, like they're like my favorite
Mhm.
contemporary Christian artists.
Yeah.
But like they were going to be on the front edge of what was up and coming in
Mhm.
music, but they were going to do it really well.
Right.
And I mean, and you even see that, like Toby Mac's been doing that for like longer than I've been alive.
Right.
And I've actually been really really amazed by that, because it seems like that commitment to choose to be musically excellent,
Mhm.
um but then also to have something of real substance is
Mhm.
incredible.
Right.
I don't, but I'm sure you know that that's not necessarily everything that's out there.
No. Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned like there's just some artists who are just calling themselves Christian
Mhm.
artists who don't either sing much about God or
Yeah.
theologically they're just trash.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know if they're just out there trying to making a quick buck because it's a smaller niche. I mean, it's not like Christian music isn't the as mainstream as regular top 40 music. So
Hmm.
the some people think like, well, it's a lot easier to crack in here
Yeah.
than trying to break into this monster where you have to be, you know, have something that stands out so bright from the rest.
Are you saying that you don't have to be necessarily talented? You just have to say the word Jesus enough time in your songs in order to get Christians to buy it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not officially saying that, but
I will. No, I think we have to be really, really careful there.
Mhm.
There was. Am I allowed to talk about South Park on this?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, there was a South Park episode that was legitimately all about that. Like
Mhm.
the kids are trying to figure out a way to make money, and one of them says to the other ones, "Guys, we could just start a new band. We could be a Christian band. We'll just change some words to Jesus, and that'll be it."
Mhm.
And and they're successful, and it's a joke, but it's, I mean,
Mhm.
and that's like, if you watch something like that, like that's the thing you don't watch uncritically, right? But
Right.
they're trying to say something,
Mhm.
perhaps in ways that sometimes get a little too crude for me and that kind of stuff, but
Right.
sometimes if I'm going to admit, they're kind of funny.
Mhm.
um
Sometimes they're spot on.
if we more often than not they are, but they like in that particular case, I mean, there are some there used to be a guy who had a TV show, or not a TV show, a radio show on in Port Huron.
Mhm.
His name was Wally, and he ended up saying something once on air that was basically like, some up and coming Christian artists say things like, "Well, God gave me this song," and Wally says, "Well, of course He did, because He didn't want it." Like, which is a really, that's, I mean, that's again, he's joking and he's pushing too far to make a point, but they're like,
Mhm.
um there's sometimes people try to slide into Christian music because they can get away with it. Some people are doing it just to make money. Now,
Mhm.
there are many, many people who are honestly like trying to listen to God and to, that do feel like indeed God gave me this song. And
Right.
so I'm not trying to take those. I
Yeah.
I could tell you my own stories about that and
Mhm.
like the way those songs have spoken to my heart.
Mhm.
Um, but I think there's a little bit of a epidemic in, maybe that's not an okay word to use these days, in Christian music, where it just all sounds the same.
Mhm.
And it all sounds the same because like companies and the way the radio plays, like, I mean, that's even true of pop culture. The
Mhm.
way radio and the way, now even social media, the way marketing handles songs
Right.
can sometimes squash creativity
Mhm.
for the sake of a quick buck.
Yeah. And I think that's potentially part of a larger problem in the church
Hmm.
where even from the pulpit where some people in this aren't in it for the correct reasons,
Right.
where they think they can make a quick buck out of it. And we see, and I don't want to bash mega churches or anything like that, but you can see where maybe in some of those instances it's there because they know uh, they can get that following.
Right.
They make it really flashy and draw people in and say the right things that aren't biblically sound, but they sound really nice.
Sure. Yeah.
And you sing songs that sound good but aren't biblically true,
Right.
and people get sucked into that, and you're just leading them astray. You're not leading them towards God.
Mhm. Well, I mean, happiness and positivity without Jesus isn't, like
It's fleeting.
right. And we love to pursue happiness and positivity, but
Mhm.
like one of the amazing things about Jesus is that he can show up in the gross parts of life,
Yeah.
and can change those things too. But I think, yeah, so I know some of it is just a marketing thing, right? But
Mhm.
you need the music that's positive and encouraging, or or that's safe for the whole family, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. And I understand the reasons for that, right?
Right.
But I also like, there are times when 3 or 4 songs will go by and they've all sounded the same, and I haven't been able to, they're not really saying anything, and I've just got to turn the radio off because it's just noise.
Right.
So,
And I mean, I don't know, maybe we need to put more of a distinction between uh, worship music and just other Christian music that's fun
Mhm.
with a good positive message. Doesn't mean it's necessarily all biblically, but it's music.
Right,
It's just the fun music to listen to. It's got a good beat or whatever,
right.
but it's not meant for worship.
Mhm.
And make more of a distinction between those two instead of you know lumping everything in, because I think we run into problems when we do that.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, some of my favorite contemporary Christian stuff is stuff that can't be sung on a Sunday morning
Right.
unless it's like specifically as a testimony, but
Hmm.
like, I was talking about Toby Mac, like
Hmm.
his This Is Not a Test album.
Hmm.
Um, I listened to that like front to back several times during a moment of transition in my life
Hmm.
when I wasn't sure, like I had just gotten beat down really hard in ministry and wasn't quite sure how to find a space to move forward. And
Okay.
there's songs like "This Is What Love Feels Like," poured out, used up, still given, stretching me out to the end of my limit.
Hmm.
Empty never felt so full.
Right.
And I was just like the Holy Spirit was using that in my life.
Hmm.
But like we're not going to sing
Hmm.
Toby Mac's "Feel It" on Sunday morning.
Right.
I mean, we might play it in the background of a video,
Right.
but it's completely, it's completely different. And if we will allow music to have those different spaces,
Hmm.
that's where we can find a little bit of freedom to enjoy what they were created for.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. One more thing I want to hit on
yeah.
in this episode. So I just want to get your opinion on somebody like Lauren Daigle,
Mhm.
who is a Christian, sings Christian songs, but kind of operates more in the mainstream music arena.
Mhm.
And just, I mean, how do you view that? Think about that. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
Well, sure. I mean, what's funny is what I think now isn't what I thought growing up,
Hmm.
right? Because when I grew up, it was Amy Grant, and
Mhm.
she left Christian music in order to pursue a mainstream career.
Hmm.
And everybody had a bunch of reasons that were really unkind about why they may have happened. And I don't know how many of them were true or not. And they're not really worth repeating, right?
Right.
Um, but I mean, boy, would I say, like mainstream music needs Christian artists,
Hmm.
because if we believe we have something to bring to the table, that is in all arenas.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that, like, this sort of, you have to be singing Christian music in order to be a good Christian person,
Hmm.
is, I think, is a bit of a mistake.
Right.
We wouldn't say that to classical musicians.
Hmm.
We wouldn't say that to jazz musicians.
Right.
I mean, we would. It's a completely different thing if every word of my song, or if the content of my lyrics is pushing people towards things that aren't good or aren't godly.
Mhm.
But even then, I think we have this thing in the back of our heads that, like, drums are of Satan, or rock music is of the devil, and that.
Right.
No, I that's gone too far.
Mhm.
But so somebody like a Lauren Daigle, who is like good enough,
Mhm.
first of all, to be out and to be recognized broadly,
Right.
or somebody like, and I keep saying Toby Mac because it
Mhm.
just, I want to meet you, Toby. Um,
He
but
listens, so
no, of course,
so
no,
he heard.
but like, I heard one of his songs on a commercial, and I was just like, well, that's cool,
Right.
but like for both of those artists, like, if you're good enough, like, go for it, because somebody needs to hear that there's something more in your lyrics or something more in your music, to then look at your life and see that Jesus has done something about it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, this whole, like, you can only be Christian if you operate in the Christian sphere,
Mhm.
is not Jesus.
Right.
Because if Jesus wanted to protect himself, if God's primary idea was that holiness is by negation, is by not doing, then
Mhm.
Jesus, then the fact that Jesus stepped into earth
Mhm.
and walked among us ends up sounding really silly or really confusing. I think that's why people were so confused initially, because how could God be here among us? He's
Mhm.
so holy and so other,
Right.
you
Why
know.
why is he eating with tax collectors? Why is he talking to prostitutes? Why is he we don't do those things.
Right.
Like
Why is
who
he
is this guy?
headlining for AC/DC? Or like, why is he the warm up act for AC?
Right.
that kind of thing in this particular
Mhm.
context. Um, and I think we sometimes have, um, we've sheltered ourselves out of influence.
Hmm.
Um, I dare I say it, all the folks who say, well, the church needs to stand up. Well, we started standing back a long time ago, and it was when we only let our kids listen to contemporary Christian music.
Mhm.
Instead of teaching them that, like, there are ways to interact, like, maybe think about a song by U2,
Mhm.
or maybe even think about a song by, list that person who you think is awful. What do the lyrics say? Why don't we believe that way?
Mhm.
But what is this showcase?
Right.
Is this showcasing emptiness? Is this showcase?
Mhm.
Um, that's So I think I get frustrated when the church beats up on good artists, or like even Skillet.
Mhm.
The question is Skillet Christian or are they not?
Right.
Right. And half of the question is their music is too good for them to just be a Christian band.
Hmm.
Like, it's this sort of suspect that, like, good Christian music has to actually just not be good music.
Right.
And no, like,
Mhm.
if people can be successful in the music industry, like, then let them do that and keep pointing to God.
Right. Because why wouldn't God open doors for his believers to have that foothold into an industry that is just has a lot of negativity and
Right.
demonic things going on, and like you would think that's a an area that he's going to want to send people
Right.
as
We're
as a mission field.
right. We're comfortable with the idea of somebody like a Tim Tebow being given opportunities in sports,
Hmm.
and we'll let him do that,
Right.
even though sports is fraught with gambling and steroids and womanizing and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But we're okay with that,
Right.
but we won't allow a musician
Hmm.
to pursue a platform from which to glorify God.
Right.
because we've given them this kind of, you can stay here on the side, and
Mhm.
this is the only way you can glorify God. Like, we have put God in a box when it comes to music,
Mhm.
and we shouldn't do that.
No, I think anytime we put God in a box, we're limiting. We're saying you're not big enough to do things this way.
Right.
You can only operate in how I feel that you're powerful enough to operate in.
Right.
And I mean, that's just
Right. Well,
defeated thinking.
right. Well, and it comes from that space of this idea that God just resides in heaven, and he just needs to get us there so we can finally get out to be good,
Mhm.
forgetting that God stepped into our existence and
Right.
is constantly in it now through the Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
And like, it's not a let's get us out without being scathed. It's
Mhm.
let's go in and in his power change the fabric of reality.
Yeah.
Like, and so if if somebody can head into into music, whether, I mean, that's where CCM started, was, that, like, maybe by doing music really well, and
Mhm.
by and by leaving those breadcrumbs for people to discover Jesus,
Mhm.
and then even more outrightly
Right.
saying, like, this is what I'm about, this is, maybe people can see, and maybe it will change the fabric
Mhm.
of the world around us.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I think we limit ourselves a lot of times and don't let God be the big God that he is.
yeah.
And we think so small and so in terms that I think are possible.
Hmm.
And we limit God to, you can only do the things I think you can do. You can only go to the places where I think you're able to go.
Hmm.
Instead of saying you can do anything, you can go anywhere, do it.
Right.
Like if you want to have a mission field there, great God. Do you need me to help? I mean,
Right.
are you calling me to that? Or, you know,
Right. And
and
we miss the discovery of that then, because
Mhm.
we're too busy telling people where God isn't, instead of looking for where he is.
Mhm. Yeah, I just wonder how many mission fields in the world that we're missing out on
Hmm.
because we want to limit God on what he can do. Like, well, you can do a lot of things, God, but you can't go there.
Yeah.
Like that's too much.
Hmm.
And you're unwilling to step into that call that you obviously are feeling because you're saying God can't do it. So you feel the nudge,
Hmm.
but we're not going in there because we don't think God can do it.
Yeah.
And we're missing out on all these different mission fields
Yeah.
of reaching people
Hmm.
because we want to think too small. We don't want to have big, grandiose thinking, and
Or we just refuse to think like God thinks.
right,
You know?
which is again, it's a spirit thing.
Yeah.
Like I think in our finite mind, we don't have the ability to do that. It's only when we're allowing the spirit to come in and control our thought process
Hmm.
that we're able to grasp the the infinite mind of God
Yeah.
and step into what He's saying and walk in it.
Right. Yeah. I want to continue to be invited into that larger world,
Hmm.
you know, and
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that somehow the path gets broader. It's still following Jesus, right?
exactly.
But Jesus isn't afraid of the world,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just, I want to keep learning. I want to always be in the space where I keep learning about God,
Hmm.
and keep allowing God to surprise me in ways that are exactly like him.
Hmm.
Like, because he's not going to, like, his character is not going to change,
Right.
but he'll use whatever method he needs to.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, it's still going to line up with scripture, which is what we were talking about before.
Hmm.
but it might not line up with the way I've always thought.
Right.
And good,
Exactly.
because I'm tired of just the way I always think.
Yeah. I mean, ministry has changed
Mm-hmm.
throughout all of history. We're not doing the same things we were doing 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. It's all changed. And if we're not open to let God change with the times, because as society changes, God's going to need to tweak the way things get done so he can speak to people. And we have to be open to those things, and they're going to look weird at times and foreign.
Right.
And as long as we know that they're backed by scripture, that
Right.
God is in control of those and he's leading those, then
Right.
all full steam ahead.
If God adapts his process towards us, or if God adapts his methods, he's not adapting who he is.
Right.
So
yeah. So yeah, I think we'll just we'll end it there.
Right.
So yeah, it was good discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So yeah, take care of a couple quick things here for the viewers. So everyone, you can catch us on social media. We are on Tuesdays around 6 to 6:30, probably closer to 6:30. We will record live on Twitch, and you can catch that on twitch.tv/wrestlingwithourfaith. And on the 16th, we will be doing that drawing for the $50 Amazon gift card. And you can still get in on that drawing if you go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, give us a like on one of our videos, and leave us a comment. Preferably a comment that lets us know what you think about the podcast, a constructive criticism, or things you like, or a point that was made that really challenged your thinking, any type of stuff like that. I mean, that's great, because that, one, we want to continue the dialogue from the podcast into the comment section. The more dialogue we have, the more we're able to grow spiritually, and we want to continue that dialogue there. And if we get enough, we can always bring up a topic and explore more things that we didn't think about when we were talking about it. We don't have all the answers or all the questions. So we want to definitely hear from you guys and what you're thinking. So go and do that. And then you can catch us on Instagram at Wrestling with Our Faith, and on Twitter at Wrestling Hour. And then we have a YouTube, yeah, I already said that. A Facebook page as well. You can go to Facebook, and that's Wrestling with Our Faith, and you can give us a like there and follow us there. So yeah, everyone, you can go do all that. And then yep, there we go. Sorry, I have a little bit different setup this week, so I have to.
Hey, you're good, man.
I'm getting used to it, but it will be easier once I'm used to it. So yeah, it was good. Do you have any big plans coming up?
Well, I'm actually going to Florida this weekend as well. Just
look at that.
We're not going to the same place, but
no.
I'll be down there for the weekend, and then
okay.
Then just back to trying to manage church life and get married and all of that stuff. It's just
that's a big one.
It's all wild. So.
Yep. Oh, good. As they say, it was great having you on.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Yeah.
It was really good to be here. And so
yeah, I'm sure all of our listeners will enjoy hearing you as well. And I'm sure there'll be comments in the comment section say we need to bring Josh back again for another appearance.
I would say, well, you do need to bring Josh back.
Well, yeah, I mean
the thinner, younger, good-looking one. Yeah, that. No.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
that Josh will be back as well, and but yes, we.
I'll fill in. I'm the second Josh, right?
Exactly.
So,
so yeah, but I'm sure everyone's going to want to have you back again as another guest host at some point in the future, and so we'll definitely do that again sometime.
Be my honor. So.
All right. Well, see you, everyone. Peace out.